Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Lots of Stories. It's been a while since I made an episode, and there's just been so much going on in the world, tumultuous for everyone. And I've really missed being with you over that time. So I'm going to make another episode for you today, and really looking forward to some of the stories and writings we're going to explore. I hope you have a great time this episode, and I think we'll get started. So this is sort of before I'm launching into a whole new season, just getting my feet wet again with recording from a new location and making sure I have the right setup, and basically just ready to reconnect with you through stories and see how to take it into a whole new season. So just like in the last set of specials, I'm going to start with some things that I've written and maybe work my way up to improvising a story, since it's been a little while since I've done that. So I'm going to start with a piece that I wrote for the holiday of Sukkot, which is a Jewish holiday that happens usually towards early fall, around October. And it's a holiday in which we remember the journey that the Israelites took through the desert, and, as told in the Bible, and over 40 years building these temporary dwellings and making it through to the promised land. Now, once the Israelites did reach the land of Israel, the holiday became an agricultural holiday as well. So there was remembering the process through the desert, but there was also connection to the harvest season, and it became one of the pilgrimage holidays on which Israelites would do sacrifices at the temple. So we don't do that anymore. Obviously, the temple is, we have remnants of it, the Western Wall and some stuff underneath, but we still do the holiday in different ways nowadays. And I wrote something for it, and I hope you enjoy. What does, one more time. What does home mean to you? Physical, emotional, spiritual? What does it mean to you to be at home? I never had a home. I was born in this desert, wandering. Before, where my parents came from, that was not home. Home is supposed to mean the place where you feel safe, where you can be yourself, where you will be accepted and loved, warm, well fed. But they didn't have any of those things in that place. None of us did. None of this mixed multitude had a home like that. And now our lives took a turn. We turned away from that life to start anew, turning, wandering. I've been wandering my whole life. We've all been wandering. Here in this desert for years and years, generations born, generations perished. In this heat, this sun and sand, the only shade is what we build for ourselves. The only cool, the only rest from the heat of the day is what we have created. We build only what can be taken down and rebuilt again and again, carrying it with us. Some on our backs, some on wagons, however we can, makeshift, a makeshift people. We make things for ourselves, we shift from this sand to that dune, and we keep walking on. I am thirsty, she is tired, we are walking, it seems endless. We have been promised a home, but before we can get there, we wander, we build, we take down, and we wander still. These are our dwellings, temporary though they may be. We have branches, palms, acacia, whatever we can find, whatever can withstand the arid heat. We use them as poles, one in each corner, and poles above and below for stability, support. Around the poles, we create walls, wrapping whatever scraps of fabric we have. And for the ceiling, we take more branches, the branches that are thinner or more crooked or with more leaves. Some of us weave them together, a perfect pattern of palms interlaced. Some of us throw them on top, haphazard, just like a tree itself. For my dwelling, I use the linen that my grandmother made. Her father farmed flax, and when she was a girl, she picked it. Her mother helped her separate and soften the fibers. The fabric is the first string she spun, the first weave she wove. There are some imperfections in the weave, and her parents hid it so that the masters wouldn't punish her for her errors. They hid it under their straw beds, and it was under the bed when my mother was born, and under my mother's bed when I was born. And the night we all left, into this wandering freedom, my grandmother took it with her, the first linen she ever made, that forms the walls of my dwelling, that I take down and put back up and take down again whenever our camp moves. Sometimes we stay at a campsite for days, sometimes months. When we stay for longer stretches of time, I get to see not only how the others in my tribe build their dwellings, I also get to see those in the camps of the other tribes. All the fabrics, all the branches. When we stay for longer, I get to wander, not through vast sands, but through the alleys between the dwellings of all the brothers and sisters that make up this mixed multitude. How good it is for brothers and sisters to dwell together. But do we dwell? We wander, we turn. We turn towards newfound freedoms, where we can show each other what our grandparents made and what we can make with it, and how we can change from one camp to another. At one camp, my boy and my girl made dolls out of dried out palm leaves, woven too, and they tied linen strings around their waists and hung them from the acacia branches that formed our roof. Each breeze made the dolls soar, as if they were trying to reach the mountain with Moshe. And when we had to pack up that tent, they untied the dolls, gave them and each other hugs, and carried them with us to our next camp so they could tie them above us again. We turn again. Freedom has its challenges. We didn't know that when we yearned for it. We didn't know that with freedom comes endless choices, opportunities to exercise judgment and care, and to get it wrong. With freedom, survival looks different. It is not necessarily you surviving from the wrath of your masters. It is you finding within you and your tribes the resources to keep going. It is you making it through the weather and the wanderings to reach the promised land. We have been wandering for years. All that is left of my grandmother is her linen and her love. It feels like we are turning around in circles, never getting anywhere. Was the promise real? Is there a home for us? Today I sat in my temporary dwelling, under my temporary roof. I used to care about weaving the ceiling, but now we just throw the branches up there. Who cares anymore? All that effort, it didn't save us anything. It all felt useless. Just throw it up. I'm tired of wandering, of building just to take down and then to build again. My boy and my girl are no longer dreaming of that mountaintop. All these rules, they don't understand why we have to follow them. I'm exhausted. And then as I sat, I saw something I've seen every day, and it looked different somehow. I saw the way the shade let in the light. I saw the reflection of a shadow of a leaf on its branch, the almost parallel lines crossing over each other and swaying and breathing as the air lifted it to show me that the sun is with me, but also that it will not burn me. I watched the walls as the evening fell, and I waited for the sun to cool. The patterns of pink turned to blue, and the blue darkened to lapis, to onyx, and I saw stars. A mixed multitude. Stars in their dwellings that danced with their light, shining through leaves. Stars that don't leave us alone in the dark, that light the way. And the branches that show me enough of them to know that we are not alone, but that also keep them quiet so we can rest. I turned over on our mats made of straw to see my boy and my girl snoring lightly, hugging the dolls that they no longer hang from the branches. Tomorrow we will wander again. When will we find home? When we get there, will we be safe? Will we stay free? Or will we be wandering forever? After 40 years, we made it. Our feet touch the sands that shift under our feet. Our people who struggle, this land of tumult. We have made it, we are told. We are home. We turned from wandering to stillness. After 40 years, I don't know if I know how not to wander anymore. I was born into wandering, and I have longed to be still. I'm tired, but I don't know how to stay still. But they tell me that here we can be safe and be free and sit still. Now we have permanent walls. We do not need to keep moving. Our walls no longer sway in the breeze, nor our ceilings. We can relax, and the cool of the day lasts longer inside. When we got here on our first night, we put markings on our doorpost, grateful to be home. We made a blanket of my grandmother's linen. My boy and my girl, we huddled under it on the nights that were cool, but we liked to keep the windows open so the stars could keep us company, to remind us that we wandered, like the stars do each night, and now we are home. When we got here, we managed to get a bit of land and some seeds. We readied rows and rows, spacing out the holes, and in each one dropped a seed. With each seed, a tear for every person we lost on our journey, each person who could not survive the heat or the wilderness or the years of wandering. In the darkness of the dirt, the seed glistened like a star. I made sure to grow a garden of flax for my grandmother and for all who survived. We tended to the plants in the heat, clipping off the dried leaves, inviting in the bees, hoping for rains in plenty for the harvest. For the first time, we will be picking the fine fruits of this land. During harvest season, we make temporary dwellings again in the fields, so we can sleep out there, so we don't miss a bit of our yield. My boy is so big, my girl is not far behind. They will be off soon, but this year they will help me harvest. We will give offerings of our first fruits, and then we will feast together, eating and drinking from the bounty of this earth, and with satisfaction in our work. We will go to the flax patch, and together we will learn to pick and separate and soften and spin and weave. Together we will make a new cloth, and into it we will weave freedom and safety and our yearnings for peace. We will embrace each other, and we will rejoice that we have made it to our home after all the years and the struggles. We turned so slowly, circuitously, from oppression to freedom, from desolation to joy. Years from now, someone will be called wise for saying what we already know. There's nothing better under the sun for a creature of this earth than to eat and drink and rejoice, and joy should accompany us in labors for all the days that God has given us under the sun. There's nothing better under the sun for us than to eat and drink and rejoice. We rejoice in the work that sustained us, all the difficult, sun-drenched, sweaty, dirty, exhausting work of the harvest. And we are comforted by all that it means to be at home, to be at peace, to feel safe, to feel free. This season of labor is the season of our joy. During the harvest, we have purpose and we have a place to belong. And for all of us, in all of our communities, in our city, and our countries, in the world, may we be sustained by and help each other turn to joy and to purpose and to home. So that's a piece that I wrote and I read on Sukkot this year, just, I guess, about a month ago at this point. It feels like ages, I barely remember, but one thing I forgot to mention about the holiday is that it's often called the season of our joy, and the idea that the harvest and the wandering and all the work that it entails is also where we find our joy. And I just found that to be a beautiful idea and theme. So I just wanted to reflect on it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. And I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted. I feel like the past month or few weeks or years, I don't know, have just been incredibly challenging and wrenching and wearying. But also, one thing that I find is that even when people are expressing a lot of anger and concern and intention, that usually underneath it is actually a lot of pain and worry. And when they're expressing what they're upset about, can often be a time to try to listen with new ears. I'm not saying that's always easy or even that it always feels worthwhile. We each have our own things that make us angry and upset and make it hard to listen. But I'm just really hoping that there's an opportunity going forward for us to listen to each other anew and find ways to connect. And I personally think, as I'm sure you all know by now, that stories are a great way to do that. And stories are a way that we work through our feelings and our fears and the things that are on our mind without necessarily knowing we're doing it. It's just kind of the unconscious kicks in. And I love that about storytelling and story listening as well. So I think that I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make up a new story. All right, y'all. I think I got a little too ambitious and I'm not sure if I felt ready to tell a new, fresh, made up story. So I'm gonna first read something and then work my way up to it. So I don't know, I'm a little out of practice. I have to get back in the game. So we'll practice with some rhyme because that always kind of frees up the brain a little bit, I think. So this is something I wrote in June, super unedited, raw, and whatever. I wrote it in a writing class. We were just kind of given a prompt and I followed it. The prompt was at the door and I just went with it. So I'm gonna read it and we'll see what you think. You know, remember, I'm trying to get that courage and ingenuity back up. So you'll see what that process is like in the moment. Okay, here we go. At the door, at the door. It's exciting at the door. It's like being at the edge of a precipice. Not sure about the old me I'm gonna miss. The security I felt when I was playing at, being someone I didn't know who wasn't that. Comfy in her own skin, and she had to be, just like everyone else who was refusing to see that individuation is actually a valiant act, and that living how your soul wants should not make you racked with guilt or stress or terror or the never-ending fear that the people who you've loved forever won't want you near. Because if they make you feel that way, then they might just be fools, and they aren't wise enough to know emotions or tools, because you can use them to identify what's really important if you listen and respect them and don't stuff them down dormant, so that they're hibernating in you, an irascible bear, who'll wake up hungry, ravenous, and he will go on a tear, with his teeth and claws and stomps and strength, and he won't let up, catching salmon with his bare hands, and on branches he will get up, and he'll swat the branches till he will catch the beehive, and his stomach grumbles, and he may not get out alive, because a hunter has his rifle and he's got the bear in sights. But the bear, he heard a twig snap, and he's not afraid of fights. And the bear and the hunter get into what you call a manly scuffle, and who knows which one of them will have their blood spill on the truffle that is sitting nestled right between the gnarly rooted tree and the muddy patch of grass, absorbing dew with urgency of the bear who woke up starving from his winter hibernation, like the feelings you were stuffing down, drilled to the foundation of who you were, a person who refused to see your feelings, because it scared you how the ups and downs would loop and have you reeling, like you're twirling dizzy and you fall down and collapse, and you don't know where you're going and you haven't got the maps, because no one taught you how to read emotions for direction, or to soothe yourself or change yourself, or to just see your reflection. So you've fallen and you can't get up. There's no one to alert. You've been quiet your whole life, and now all you want to do is to blurt out every little thing that's deep inside your core. You're sick of all the avoiding, want to bring it to the fore. But you know that all those people who are right behind the door don't want to hear it, will not hear it. They have told you this before. At the door, what will happen at the door? I heard someone open up the little latch. I heard someone waiting for their egg to hatch. It was me. I was waiting for myself to open and walk right through the door. And since the door was open, I decided to walk through, And then I found the greatest mystery, the greatest truth. It turned out I had been so scared of what I'd find inside. I thought I'd find these people I loved wanting me to hide because they'd told me many times before to be just so. I knew that if I wasn't, either they or I would go. So I thought when I opened this door, we'd have to have that talk, that I'd tell my loved ones who I am, and they or I would walk. See, I'd seen them through the window. I saw them all laughing, sitting all around the fireplace with drinks and toys and bling. And I was scared to enter because I thought that stuff was cruel, because I knew they only got it because they thought others were fools. So when I opened up the door, to my astonishment, surprise, the tableau was not the window scene. That was a trick of my scared eyes. What was really through the door was not the loved ones of forever. It was a room filled up like a wide field with flowers, friends, endeavors. With all the projects that I've started and ones I've finished too, and the love in my communities and the friends who could be blue. They could be all the colors you would find in nature out and in. They all felt their feelings, talked to them, contained them in their skin. And then as they'd process, they would share and talk and would create. And we'd all take turns and open up and find ways to relate. And then in the middle of this wonder was my best friend, who knew to love enough to be there through the start, middle, and end. And he patched up all my aching wounds and helped me learn to fly. And when I was scared, he'd hug me through the tears each time I'd cry. And when I'd crash or falter, he would never judge or criticize. Instead, he'd show me once more, once again, how I could stabilize. And then, right inside this meadow, among our friends and new communities, he knew I was still missing the other loved ones who I longed to please. So he told me that if I was right and they were merely fools, well, he said, you know what you do with fools? You love them harder. At the door, love and friendship at the door. Okay, so that piece, it turns out I actually wrote in two parts. I forgot about this, but um, or I forgot to say it before, but I didn't realize that there were two parts to this piece in that class that I took, which is fantastic, and it was taken at the Writers Rock, which is doing online classes right now, and I love them. Great. Um, they had this class where we would get two different prompts, and we'd write on the first one for a while, and then we'd write on the second one for a while. So the first one, the prompt was at the door, and midway through, there was a prompt. It was a picture of a bird in hand out a window, and it was about to fly free. And most of the time, when we get two prompts, I would do two different pieces, but for this one, I just sort of continued, but morphed along the way. So anyway, as I said, that was a pretty raw piece. I haven't looked at it, I think, since June, and that was really fun to read. And I didn't remember where it was going. I didn't even remember it was sort of the same piece. So I hope you enjoyed. That was fun for me to read. Okay, we're gonna do it. We're gonna make up a whole new, fresh story. Let's go. So I'm gonna look around the room I'm in and look for some prompts to get my imagination going. I'll probably pick a couple suggestions and then I'll get started. So give me a minute to gather my thoughts and I will be back with you shortly. Once upon a time, there was a little fire flickering. The little fire was in a lamppost in the middle of a park. And it flickered high and it flickered low, and it would weave and bob from side to side and up and down, and would light the way for everyone walking through this path. Now, this flickering flame was situated in this park, in the part of the park that was woody, but there's still a path that you could easily trod. It was a path in the dirt, but it didn't get particularly muddy. Even on a really rainy day, it would just kind of stay a little elevated so that the water ran off. And to the side of this little mud path, there were grasses and trees and mosses. And in the summer, everything smelled so fresh and alive. And sometimes some little kids would come by and just sit down and pick some grass or some clover. And the smell was heavenly, but it wasn't heavenly, it was earthly. And they just sat there, those kids, imagining the smell of this grass wafting out to the heavens. Now, that little grass, when that little piece of grass and clover were broken, there were little droplets of scent that would just dance upwards. And the kids weren't making it up, it really happened. The smell would dance upwards into the sky. And there would be a cloud that would just be waiting for that smell in summer. Because that cloud would sit there with its nose facing down, just waiting to smell things like that. You know, it loved the grass and the clover. And sometimes it wondered, it saw these pretty yellow flowers, like trumpets in the spring. And it wanted to know what those smelled like. And it would see these big, red, blooming flowers and want to know what those smelled like. And even though they thought they were so beautiful to look at, the cloud wondered, does it have a scent? Is it like that grass and clover? I sure don't want anyone to have to break it apart and destroy its beauty. But if that's the only way to smell it just once in my life, I'd like to know. I just want to know, does it have a scent? One day, that summer, all the clouds came together. The sky got really dark, and it was the middle of the day. It turned gray and cloudy and gloomy, and it felt like the clouds were just rolling in so close to the earth. And the kids who were playing on their little meadow were like, oh no, this is going to be a huge storm. What is going to happen? Maybe we need to run for home. So they ran out of there super fast. They knew the path would be dry and carry them home, but they just had to go. And the clouds were so excited because now they had this whole park and path to themselves. And they started bouncing around like this big dance party, and all of that friction between them, but it was fun friction because you know when you get your dance on, like these clouds are having a great time. And all that crackling energy between them, it created the biggest booms of thunder. And then there were these bolts of lightning, like their arms were extended, energy flashing everywhere. And they were like, I think this is going to do it. I think these might reach those big, colorful things. And we might get to release that smell. And we're going to smell it at the end of this party. So they just danced and they crackled and they boomed. And the rains came down to wash everything out. And it was like the whole universe was releasing all that energy that they had built up. You know, winter had happened, and then they had spring, and they had to like, it takes so much energy for those leaves to come out and those flowers to unfurl and everything. And the clouds are watching it all, but sometimes they just got to party. Like, they got to rejoice in the beauty of this world. So that's what they did. And through the crackling and the booming, it rattled the earth and it shook. It just shook everything just a little bit, not to destroy it, but just enough to crackle the skin of those grasses and clovers and flowers. At the end of this dance party, the clouds just chilled for a minute. They're just like, that was a good dance. I need to get a drink of water. I've got to refresh. And they each started to separate a little bit and relax. And as they did, the sun started to poke through and the air started to dry and the land started to dry. And the smell from that earth started to go upwards because, yeah, the skins of those petals were a little bit cracked and the blades of grass a little bit cracked. And, sometimes when you think you get hurt, you think that you're never going to be able to rebuild yourself, you're going to bleed or you're going to get scarred or something. Sometimes what happens is you release something beautiful and you're able to rebuild. And yeah, maybe the petal got like a little line in it that was what some people call an imperfection, But actually what happened was they released the smell and it reached those clouds. And those clouds loved them even more and gave them all that water that let them keep growing and patch themselves up so they could have the rest of the summer to be blooming and beautiful and green or red or yellow or any color that they were. That's what that rain allowed them to do. And that little lamppost, that flame was encased in glass and it saw the whole thing. When it saw the lightning come down, it said, "That's my friend. We burn." And when it heard the rumbling, it just held on straight to its source and made sure it kept flaming. And when it saw the teeny little particles, because a light like that, that flickers like that, it can shine a light on the smallest things, and you could see these little beads of aroma reaching up. And it said, "That scent is just like me because it's trying to bother me and reach up there too. And I know I'm encased in this glass, and maybe if I got let out, it would put me out. But I'm telling you, I'm watching those guys, and we're flying together." The next day, the kids came back to the park, and we saw that even though there was that huge rain that separated them and made them go home, that rain made their little patch of park brighter, greener, more lush, more full, more everything that they loved about it. They said, "It's going to be the best summer ever." And okay, so that was my story for today. I don't know if it had much of a plot, but sometimes that's the way it goes. Sometimes you just need to reflect on things and enjoy them. And I hope you enjoyed. It was great to be back here with you telling stories again. I missed telling stories. I'm a little out of practice and hoping to get back into it. I have some things that I'm excited about for season 2, and I guess I should tell you guys about it now because I need your help. So for season 2 of the show, what I would like to do is, rather than use the fortune teller that I was using before, which is great when I was able to meet in person with awesome other storytellers, but I don't think that's safe to do yet. Look forward to the days when it is because I loved it. But for right now, I want to do something different, and I want to tell stories that are basically dedications. So I want your help to tell me if there's a person you want to dedicate a story to. And tell me something about them. You don't have to tell me anyone's names or anything like that. But you could say, like, the story is for my mom, and my mom loves science. And so if you tell us a story about science and dedicate it to my mom. Or you could say, there's someone in my community who does amazing work. She cares for people or makes sure they have meals, or she writes really good legislation, or anything like that. There's someone who's a great storyteller, and I want to devote a story to them. anything that where we can just spread a little bit of love to the people who we love and tell stories in the meantime. So that's what I would like to do. I'm gonna have a Google form, so it'll be really easy for you to do it, and I'll put the details, um, somewhere for you to be able to reach. But while I get that up and running, please consider if you have someone you would like to dedicate a story to. And what I'll do is once I get a few suggestions in, I'm going to just pick them at random during the show. And if you give me your email address, I will contact you to let you know that there's a story dedicated to the person you wanted a story for. So that is what I would like to do in season 2, and I hope you'll help me and think back to people you love and who you want to share a story with, and I hope that I'll be able to help you do that. So that's it for now. I'll be back with you guys soon, and just hope you're well, hope your loved ones are well, and take care.